Good afternoon, Chair Moore, Commissioners, CEO Chadwick, and General Counsel Russell. I'm Larry Hoffreiter, Director of Parks and Recreation. I'm joined today by Erica Noguera from Parks and Recreation, Captain Christopher Woodward from Harbor Police, and Simon Kahn from the General Counsel's Office. We're here today to provide an update on the Port's Vending and Expressive Activity program and to recommend a few relatively minor modifications based on our evaluation of the program this year. As a reminder, the board updated the San Diego Unified Port Code District section number 805, Vending and Expressive Activity, in February of 2023 to do three things. One, authorize commercial vending in allotted spaces with issuance of a permit. Two, update the district's time, manner, and place restrictions for expressive activity. And three, modify the penalties and enforcement procedures outlined in Port Code 8.05. Since that time, the board has asked staff to return to the board periodically with an evaluation and an assessment of the program. Based on those updates, as well as input from vendors and members of the general public, the board has modified and fine-tuned the program over the years. The program's objectives are the same as they were in 2023. As part of our evaluation of the program in calendar year 2025, staff has found that it continues to successfully advance the four program objectives listed here. One of the board's modifications that helped improve the integrity of the program was establishing minimum occupancy requirements for commercial vendors. To ensure the district's commercial vending spaces are used on a regular basis, commercial vendors are required to vend a minimum of 16 days a month and a minimum of 5 hours per day. As you can see here, in calendar year 2025, 84% of the commercial vendors met the minimum occupancy requirements established by the district. Although there are no minimum requirements for expressive activity, based on an abbreviated field survey conducted in September, staff found that an estimated 40% of the expressive spaces were used. This suggests that, one, the expressive spaces are being used, and two, there continues to be adequate opportunities for people to engage in activities protected under the First Amendment. Staff is also proud to report that for calendar year 2025, there have only been 19 vending violations to date, shown in the column on the far right. This is a dramatic decrease from the 140 violations in 2023 and the 61 violations recorded in 2024. Increased awareness of the district's vending program, in conjunction with ongoing and consistent enforcement of the district's regulations, has most likely contributed to higher compliance rates and fewer violations. Despite the success of the program overall, there is always room for improvement. Over the course of the 2025 permit cycle, staff received feedback in a variety of ways and from a variety of stakeholders, including a formal proposal submitted by a Seaport Village tenant, which is included in attachment D in your materials. Parks and Recreation staff, Harbor Police, Office of the General Counsel, and all 6 of the district's community service officers participated in a half-day workshop to discuss this feedback and how to improve the district's vending program. This workshop format enabled staff to discuss and evaluate the program from a variety of viewpoints. The discussions and insights gleaned from this workshop helped guide the modifications and recommendations staff is proposing today. I'd like to now turn it over to Erica Noguera to present staff's recommendations.
Thank you, Larry, and good afternoon. Staff is recommending changes to 6 existing spaces in 3 of the 8 designated areas in San Diego. The changes are summarized in this table. Note that within the program, the spaces are color-coded for easy identification, with commercial spaces indicated in blue and expressive activity spaces indicated in green. The net effect of the proposed change is a reduction of 2 commercial vending spaces from 33 to 31, and no change to the total number of expressive activity spaces, which would remain at 34. This is a total of 65 spaces along the Embarcadero. Next, I will discuss the proposed changes in each area and why these changes are being recommended. Okay, starting in Embarcadero Marina Park North in designated Area 7 behind Seaport Village, staff is recommending removal of commercial space number 55 because it obstructs the view of San Diego Bay. In addition, this space has already been turned over 3 times this year because vendors have either failed to meet their minimum occupancy requirements or they have voluntarily forfeited the space. This suggests that this location may not be a highly desirable vending space. A photo of space 55 is shown on the left, and the location is shown on the right with a red box around it to show that staff is recommending removal. Also in designated Area 7, staff is recommending to change commercial space number 54 to an expressive space shown outlined in green. This would help reduce view blockage of San Diego Bay because the use of space for expressive activity typically comes with less equipment and merchandise than commercial vending use, and the visual impact tends to be lighter. The photo on the left is an example of expressive activity that has limited visual impact. We'll stay in Embarcadero Marina Park North. Staff is recommending to switch expressive space number 59 and commercial space number 61 to reduce pedestrian congestion at the intersection of Kettner Boulevard. The photo on the left shows the commercial vending spaces on both sides of this intersection. Replacing 61 with expressive activity and moving it would improve public safety by moving patrons further away from a high-traffic intersection. Here on the other side of Kettner Boulevard in designated Area 8, staff also recommends removal of commercial space number 64 to reduce pedestrian congestion on this side of the intersection. Relocating the space is not feasible due to existing infrastructure in the area. And finally, in designated Area 6 near Ruaco Park, staff is recommending changing expressive space number 44 to a commercial space to help address the reduction of commercial spaces in Embarcadero Marina Park North. All right, now let's look ahead at the upcoming 2026 vending permit cycle. Commercial vending applications were accepted from October 1st through 31st, and during this period, the port received 551 applications, with up to 464 of those being potentially eligible for the opportunity drawing, as of the data analyzed yesterday. Staff will continue to review and process applications through November 14th. As a next step, staff will conduct an opportunity drawing on Wednesday, November 19th to randomly select applications and assign district commercial vending spaces. If the board adopts staff's recommendation, the ordinance would become effective on Friday, December 5th, and then the 2026 commercial vending cycle would begin on Wednesday, January 7th, 2026, and run through the end of the year, December 31st. In closing, staff recommends the board amend District Code Section 8.05 to modify the maps to reflect 31 commercial vending spaces and 34 expressive activity spaces for a total of 65 spaces, as discussed in today's presentation. Thank you for your time. This concludes staff's presentation, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you. I will now open the public hearing. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak?
We do. We have one remote speaker that I'll call first, Taryn Hopp. Can you hear us? Is she unmuted? You should be unmuted. Taryn Hop, please.
Yes, I'm trying to speak right now.
Perfect.
My mic is unmuted.
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Oh, great. Okay. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Taryn Hoppy, and I'm a local business owner here on the waterfront. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, for me to speak in strong support of the Rec Department's proposal to amend the Vending and Expressive Activity Code under Ordinance 8.05. We have seen firsthand how the current vending situation, especially in designated areas 7 and 8 along the Embarcadero, has changed the character and safety of that area of our waterfront. What was once a welcoming, walkable space for families, visitors, and locals has become congested, unsafe, and unsightly. Booths are crowding bike paths and crosswalks, pedestrians are pushed into traffic, and illegal and unregulated food carts are setting up in between the chaos. These problems are not just about aesthetics, they're about public safety and the community's right to enjoy our shared public spaces. The proposed removal of certain booths, particularly numbers 61, 64, and 65, which is what we wanted, along with stronger enforcement and restrictions on the merchandise categories for sale, are common sense solutions that balance economic opportunity with public welfare. The proposal honors the intent of SB 946, and which allows local regulation when vending interferes with health, safety, or the natural and scenic character of a park. And that's exactly what's happening here. Our waterfront should reflect San Diego's beauty and spirit, and not a patchwork of overcrowded, non-compliant booths, some of which sell identical or counterfeit goods. I love seeing small businesses succeed. I'm one myself, but the current setup helps neither vendors nor the community. In fact, it's kind of pushing out the very people who it intended to help, which are those first-time vendors that are selling unique goods, desirable goods such as culturally significant food and merchandise, and it's letting bad actors kind of take advantage of loopholes in the policy to maintain multiple booths, sell identical merchandise, and such. And with these amendments, we can restore balance and safety and the enjoyment that this area deserves, and still give ample opportunity for commercial vending and expressive spaces. So thank you for listening and for considering this important step towards a cleaner, safer, and more vibrant Embarcadero area.
Thank you. Now we have William Dorsett, followed by at.and.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing?
Good afternoon.
Due to a recent court case in San Diego, Hubbard v. San Diego 2025, Port Code 805 is most likely in violation of First Amendment of the Constitution, particularly its exclusions, local restrictions, and treatment of donation-based performance. The First Amendment safeguards verbal and nonverbal expressive activity that conveys a message likely to be understood by observers. Street performance, art creation, and instruction are protected in traditional public forums such as parks and promenades. Regulations are subject to strict scrutiny if content-based, or if the regulations do not leave ample alternative means of communication. In Hubbard, yoga instructors challenged the city ordinance banning yoga instruction in shoreline parks. The Ninth Circuit held that teaching yoga is protected expressive conduct involving communication of ideas and philosophy. The ordinance was content-based, felt strict scrutiny, and enforcement was enjoined. The case reaffirmed board protection for instructional and performance expression in public spaces. Section 805 excludes certain art forms, handcrafts, personal services, body art, from protection. These distinctions are content-based and likely unconstitutional under Hubbard v. San Diego and White versus City of Sparks. Limiting expressive activity to 34 small pads may fail to leave adequate alternative channels, risking overbreadth under Berger versus City of Seattle. Treating voluntary donations as vending burdens protected speech. Under Hubbard and Gurdjieff Vishnu Society, donation-based expression remains protected. Broad authority for authority officials to classify and remove performers constitutes as prior restraint lacking objective standards, while legitimate such interest must be pursued through contract-neutral time, place, manner restrictions to withstand scrutiny. In light of Hubbard versus San Diego, SDUPD 805's exclusions, space restrictions, and donation limitations likely impose unconstitutional burdens on expressive active artists and performers. The port should revise 805 to remove content-based distinctions, clarify that donations are protected, and ensure regulations are content-neutral, narrowly tailored, and leave open ample alternatives to expression. For example, we weren't invited to the survey. Not a single expressive activity was invited. In your own reports, it says that. No information from us at all. Second, I found out about this last minute through a third party. You guys should notify expressive activities when you're going to have a meeting concerning them. I'm the only one here today. That's not good. I hope y'all do better. Have a good day.
We have L. Broughton, followed by Sharon Cloward.
Good afternoon, Chief and Commissioners. Excuse me for my accent. I'm an artist in Embarcadero near Midway Museum, and I'm very pleased that you give opportunity for artists to represent art in San Diego for tourists and guests. So this area is very important for San Diego because it's a beautiful place, and every morning when I show up my art, where some tourists looking around and buying view of San Diego for souvenirs. But we have several problems. Every morning when I start to show up my booth, I see trash around where is which is space. People throw away some trash because not enough trash buckets around here. So they looking around, they don't find, they throw away. Please, I think we need add some more trash cans to keep our area clean and beautiful. And this is my husband. He is maybe more clear speak English because I have accent. And maybe I will give him voice to continue my note.
My surprise of the day is that I would be speaking before you today, but I'd like to give you thanks for that.
Good husband there.
To add a couple words to what my wife was talking about is the cherry tree blocks need to either be filled with dirt or capped, because I've noticed tourists don't really know what they're doing. They toss and walk. And it goes in and they think they're happy, and we look over and, it's full of junk and we have to clean that out.
I clean every time.
Yeah, which,
Space around.
but if somebody put dirt in them and filled them up or capped them in some way, that would stop that. Or we also need trash cans in the middle of the park area south of the aircraft carrier. The other issue that my wife is concerned about and has noted in the email that you'll be able to read in detail is the conflict between Expressive that are musicians of some type. Their sound is above 85 decibels, which is where you start to have a problem with your hearing. And there needs to be an accommodation for them separate from us that are conducting some sort of business activity. There are several places where this could happen, where it would be further away from us, and it wouldn't be so, I don't want to say annoying, but it's loud, and it causes a lot of trouble, sometimes more trouble than others, depending on the artist, but that's not something we're here to comment about, as much as some form of segregation would be appreciated. That's all I guess we have.
Yeah, so I want to add that because this is area, it's a relaxation area. We have booth here, tables for tourists, for people. A lot of seniors going around the Saturday, Sunday. But some drummers, they playing very loud. I know what you try to catch them, but they so smart. And
Your
some specialists
time
coming with machine.
has expired. I'm
No.
sorry. Please
Thank you.
wrap up your comments.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have Sharon Cloward.
Good afternoon again, Chair Moore, Commissioners, and staff. I just wanted to really thank Port staff. This ordinance that you put together. As I said before we started this, it wasn't safe. People didn't know what they were eating, if the food was safe. And it looked like a swap meet down there. And even the vendors were fighting with each other. So this takes a lot of work, and I would really like to thank this port staff for the work that they've done. They've gone out there. I don't know how many times they've been out there talking to the vendors and everything. But I just want to say good job on this. It's really done its job. Thank you.
That concludes public.
Is it a voicemail?
Oh, I'm sorry, we do have a voicemail. Thank you.
Hi, this is a public comment for item number N, as in Nancy, 1 on the agenda this afternoon. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Taryn Hoppy, and I'm a local business owner here on the waterfront. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak in strong support of the Rec Department's proposal to amend the Vending and Expressive Activity Code under Ordinance 8.05. We've seen firsthand how the current vending situation, especially in designated areas 7 and 8 along the Embarcadero, has changed the character and safety of our waterfront. What was once a welcoming, walkable space for families, visitors, and locals has become congested, unsafe, and unsightly. Booths are crowding bike paths and crosswalks. Pedestrians are pushed into traffic, and illegal.
That's a duplicate comment. So that concludes public comment.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing and open up to commissioner discussion. All right. Commissioner Ungap, thank you.
Just to add on Mr. Dorsett's presentation, because it was different than the presentation that staff had planned. I just want to ask Larry, like, have we looked, and I'm sure Simon would have to say, look, does this, accepting this new proposal and these changes, does it affect our liability as a port? Either make it better or worse or neutral? Just a comment on that before I make the.
Sure. Commissioner Ungap, Larry Hoffreiter for the record. We've carefully evaluated every single space that is out there, so we don't see any liability in terms of the spaces we're recommending. I'll also go so far to say, or council might want to jump in, but we're also very confident that this is content neutral, our regulations are content neutral, and that we do have, time, place, manner restrictions that are consistent with state and federal law.
Tom, comment as to his comment about the yoga experience in San Diego. Do we have issues that we have to worry about?
I think Simon volunteered to answer that question just now.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Commissioner. As Larry mentioned, the port originally and continues to look at the constitutionality of the port's regulation. We still consider them to be reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions adequately justified by the findings of this board. We have taken a look at the yoga case and do not believe that it changes the assessment of that. That case does not eliminate the possibility of reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions being placed on expressive activity. The port continues to allow plenty of opportunity for expressive vendors to perform and do their activities at the port, as shown by the data collected on usage and still having allowability. So we don't believe that case changes the opinion that this board's direction and regulation, it remains constitutional.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm supportive of what you all have done, Larry. I wanted to give you a chance to respond. There was a comment made about that we didn't invite the expressive artists. Could you respond to that, please?
Absolutely, Commissioner Urtas and Larry Hoffreiter for the record. We go to great lengths to try to inform the general public about what we're doing. What we do with the expressive people in particular is we found the best way to reach them is by handing out flyers. So beginning on, I think it was September 20th, every Saturday and Sunday, we would have 6 maritime security staff distribute flyers to everyone up and down and around the Embarcadero, informing them not just of this board hearing today, but of all the other steps that are coming in terms of when the application process starts for commercial vending, when the opportunity drawing is. So we've been distributing those flyers every weekend since September 20th.
Thank you, Larry. Madam Chair, I'll move staff's recommendation on this item.
Commissioner Varakara, sorry about that.
No worries, Chair, thank you. So first of all, there's very few times when you can really see kind of like the evidence of a policy working for like in 805. You see the total violations starting at 140 to this year at 19. And I have to say, like, I just really appreciate the opportunity to see the expressive artists and those vendors out there who are doing, really unique, interesting things. And it is part of our kind of like shared community for that to occur. So I just want to say thank you so much for doing, the constant tweaking and updating and listening to the voices of the community, and for the answer you just gave, Commissioner Urtasun, in terms of outreach to our artists and our vendors. I did have one question. So 86% of those respondents, and this really kind of stuck out to me, said that reported that they rely on the port vending as their primary source of income. And so so obviously we're reducing 2 booths for vending, and I just was curious, just walk me through, your decisions, your thinking around like that, the importance of these spaces for individuals and their families.
Commissioner Varakara, Larry Hoffreiter for the record. You're absolutely right. It's at the end of the day, it's a balancing act. But we did do, Logan Heights Community Development Corporation did a survey to try to understand a little bit more the characteristics of the commercial vendors in particular. And we found that a lot of them do rely on vending as their primary source of income. So what we always try to do as staff is we try to, balance sometimes competing interests. And, as we got together in that internal workshop with HPD and General Counsel, we thought it made sense to remove 2 of those spaces. One because it was so close to the intersection. Then the other one we could move a little bit farther away from the intersection. But then that other one really seemed like it really did obstruct the view. So that's our recommendation. But as always, it's the board's decision. So we're happy to make any modifications that the board here directs us to do.
Thank you, Larry. Vice Chair Moore?
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate staff on really what a great job. This ordinance has really become just really important to the way the Bayfront looks and how it operates. And I know the figures speak for itself with respect to citations, but it also, if you go down there and walk along the Bayfront, you can really tell the difference. And I just wanted to congratulate staff. I know that it took a lot of hard work, a lot of determination to get us to the point where it's running very smoothly. It's just job well done.
Thank you, Vice Chair Moore. I want to echo what she just shared, and that this hasn't been a very easy problem to address. And it has been evolving in the time that I've been on this board. I know it's taken a lot of creative thinking and consideration of a lot of different viewpoints to get it to where it is now, which is more perfect than the day that we started trying to address this. And I think the numbers show it in terms of the number of incidents, when you walk down there, as Vice Chair Moore said, how more peaceful it is, that there aren't conflicts between vendors. So I just applaud you and your staff in addressing this issue and really being thoughtful about how we approach it. One thing that I'm struggling with is the reduction of spaces. When I look at us having 464 people who have applied, I guess we got 551, but there are only 464 that were eligible. And particularly the results of the survey about how many people are relying on this. I'm really struggling with the idea of reducing spaces. I'm also troubled, that we didn't have a survey that was really reflective of all the voices. I was reminded in a meeting this week that someone commented that I'm always focusing on inclusivity. And I think it is important to have as many voices as possible in the conversation. And I would I struggle with the idea of supporting this and the reduction of spaces. I really would like to see if there's some way for us to be creative about figuring out how we can not have a net reduction, but find other spaces that might be appropriate without blocking the review. And then I had a couple of questions for you. As we move toward the 2026 cycle, will staff consider a more comprehensive performance review, perhaps including community feedback, vendor outcomes, and enforcement efficiency to inform any broader policy adjustments next year? And what might that look like?
Yeah. Chair Moore, Larry Hoffright, for the record, absolutely. We serve and work at the pleasure of the board, and every year we're trying to learn a little bit more about vending and how it affects Port Highlands. I think I can speak for the whole team, where we're more than happy to do a more comprehensive assessment. This time around, we tried to look at what the income of the commercial vendors are in particular, but we can certainly do that again next year. One of the things I will just suggest is some of the expressive artists and performers aren't as, we don't issue them permits. So we don't necessarily have a forum that's as easily to engage them with as we do the commercial vendors who actually have to apply with an application and we give them a permit. We have kind of a direct link to understand how often they use the spaces, and they have to adhere to the terms and conditions.
The expressives do, is that right?
No, that's the commercial.
Okay.
But for the expressive, those are spaces that are available on a first come, first served basis.
Okay.
And we don't want to have any prior restraint in terms of what types of free speech activities they go out there. So we don't necessarily have a mechanism. That being said, I can certainly circle back with my team and identify ways to try to engage, I think, the expressive community in a little bit more detail than when we come back next year, if that's the board's direction.
I think that would be great. I think that they are an important constituency, and so trying to find ways, maybe QR codes that are posted someplace, or these flyers that are handed out, proactively taking their information and adding them to some email list. I'm sure they talk to each other, and so communicating with them so that they can put you in the loop with the community might be a good way to get in touch. And Mr. Dorsett has showed up at every one of these meetings. We've heard about his daughter, the incident that he had, the rats and comics things that he's created. So, we've seen his artwork. So I think, he might be a good resource to tap in terms of getting the information for the community. So yeah, I think I'm struggling to support this with the reduction of the 2 spaces. I think I would like you all to figure out where we can, not eliminate the 2 spaces we have, especially when we have so many people who rely on this as a source of income, and when we have 464, people who are interested in these spaces. So I know that Commissioner At.and has already made the motion, and so I think we'd have to entertain that before there would be an opportunity to entertain something else. So is there a second for Commissioner At.and's motion to adopt staff's recommendation?
Yeah, do you want to amend your motion to include?
I'd rather not.
Okay, that's the
All right, is there a
answer.
second? Vice Chair Moore?
Yeah, can I understand exactly what it is that you would be proposing? So if we
Sure.
if we adopted the first motion, would that preclude us from considering something else, I guess, is what
Sure,
I'm trying to
I
struggle with here.
Sure, yeah, no problem. Thank you, Vice Chair Moore. I am not supportive of the reduction of the 2 spaces. I would like staff to come back in January with a proposal of how we can maintain the 2 spaces, so identifying specifically where we would relocate the spaces that are being eliminated.
Chair, if I may, one of the complications is that given the timing of an ordinance to take into effect and the opportunity drawing that is set to happen, that if changes are made to the available spaces after that opportunity drawing and the 2026 permits have been issued, we really don't have an opportunity to reset things until the beginning of 2027. I think some of the options that the board has is either to accept the recommendation as made, which would eliminate 2 spaces, reject staff's changes, in which case it would be status quo, or if there are specific changes the board wants to direct and vote today, that would be implemented in the ordinance. The ordinance and the code really do set where the spaces are and where it's allowable and where it needs a permit. So unfortunately, it does complicate things and would be difficult to change midstream in between the permit cycles for the commercial vending spaces.
I just need to ask a question, Simon. We do have a waiting list that we maintain, is that right?
I don't know if we have a waiting list. One of the things, though, about the opportunity drawing is that as your name comes up, you get to choose of the available ones in your order. So potentially, if you were to make a very desirable spot come up in January and have it go to someone on the wait list, it potentially is depriving the person who won the opportunity drawing of the largest choice. But these are up to the board to allow that. It would be allowable to have additional spaces and then to find a way to grant those to people.
Because it's my understanding that Larry said that spot 55 has come up a couple of times, that people basically, when they can no longer utilize a space, they give it back, and there's some mechanism by which they're able to reallocate that space. Is that right?
Yeah, Chair Moore, Larry Hoffreiter for the record. So the way that the system is set up currently is based upon last year. We selected commercial vendors for the 33 commercial spaces, and then we had 40 alternates. So when that space 55, when they weren't meeting their minimum use occupancy requirements, we gave them one warning, and if they didn't do it a second month, then we would revoke their permit. So that's happened 3 times for space 55, but that's based upon the opportunity drawing that we conducted in November of 2024.
Right.
The opportunity drawing that we're going to be conducting presumably on November 17th of this year would identify the specific spaces for commercial vendors this time around, and we'd have a new list of alternates to move into if those people didn't meet their minimum occupancy requirements.
So what would be the complication with moving those alternates to the available spaces that we identify once we figure out where those 2 additional spaces will be?
I think the challenge is because the ordinance actually identifies on the map where those spaces are, we would need to identify where those spaces are as part of this meeting here today. So I think that's why Simon suggested, if we wanted to, we could, the board could reject staff's recommendation and maintain space 55 and maintain space 64. That way we would still have those 2 commercial spaces there. And then maybe next year, part of the direction of staff could be to maybe look for better locations for those 2 commercial spaces.
Thank you for that clarification. So just to modify what I said earlier, then my recommendation would be to maintain the status quo and have the staff go back and identify alternate spaces.
And except for that, anything else?
Larry Hoffreiter, maybe just one question for clarification. So if we maintain space 55 and 64, which are both commercial spaces, does the board have any direction in terms of changing space 54 and 59, 54 and 61 to expressive spaces and to switch around the green and blue spaces? Or because we're not losing any spaces, is the board supportive of those recommendations in the report? Maybe if the clerk could pull up slide number 16. It's a backup slide, but it shows all the spaces in their entirety.
So Larry, can you explain what would be left if you just didn't take those 2 spaces out, and then what is left in their ask of the board?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Tom?
Yeah, what you would ask the board to approve if those 2 spaces were put back in?
Correct. And I can read that into the record.
Well, I think it would be good to see what it is is that what it is? Can you show us here what it is that we would be voting on?
So those two would essentially cancel each other out. Then the board's direction would be, the motion would be to change 59 from a current expressive space to a commercial space, and change space 61 from a commercial space to an expressive space. And then to maintain space 55 as commercial and maintain 64 as commercial.
Would that be a net loss of one expressive?
No, it doesn't sound like it. So,
It shouldn't be.
It
It should
should
be a
be.
swap. We're
It's all
we're
swaps.
swapping 54 and 44 and 59 and 61. And we would
so-
maintain 55 and 64 as commercial.
So in other words, because it's an ordinance and because the spaces are specifically designated, if we wanted to remain the same amount of commercial spaces, then we would not be able to take action on items 55 or 59, correct? And then the idea is to come back later.
55 and 64.
I'm sorry, 55 and
Vice Chair.
64, and then to come back later with the idea that maybe there might be other places that can replace those places, the 55 and 64, so that there'd be an equal amount of commercial spaces. Okay.
Vice Chair Moore, my recommendation would be to maintain space 55 and 64 as commercial spaces for calendar year 2026. And then when we come back next fall, staff will then identify potentially improved commercial spaces in different areas. But that'll give us time, and that way whoever's selected for those spaces will be able to use them for the calendar year.
That seems fair enough.
Yes, I agree with that,
Yeah.
Vice Chairman.
And then I think also if you could get more data on the use of 55, because it seems like it might not be used that often. And so maybe it's just not a good spot for commercial, which is, I think, what you said. So maybe that more data would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Happy to do that.
Chair, we have a motion on the floor that hasn't received a second. Would you? So I just, for the record, the motion died for lack of second. Thank you.
Thank you for stating that. So yes, the motion dies for lack of second. Is there another motion? Vice Chair Moore?
I'll attempt that. So I would say that we would adopt staff's recommendation except for spaces 55 and 64, which will remain the same, and that we request staff to come back next November with part of their update with potentially new locations for 55 or 64, along with additional information that may be helpful in determining whether or not those two locations are in fact good locations.
Second. Please vote. There's been a motion by Vice Chair Moore and a second by Chair Moore.
Motion passed unanimously with Commissioner Malcolm excused.
All right, thank you. Moving to